Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? All right, welcome. My name is Ryan Keitlin. I am the Program Director for Innovation, Entrepreneurship, Master of Science. And on behalf of the business schools and the graduate schools, we are hosting these panels today in conjunction with Global Entrepreneurship Week. And welcome to everyone that has joined us online as well. With me today is Josh Taylor. Now, Josh is the founder of Axum, Do Good Farm, and House Blend Cafe. He started this in 2005, and actually, he's a recording arts graduate way back in 1999. So, welcome, Josh. Okay, Josh, let's start with tell me about your businesses because I know you have three of them, and it's a lot of diversity there too. So let's just start about just a general about your businesses.
Yep, for sure. So just one point of clarity, I did not found Axum. I
Okay.
founded House Blend Cafe 11
Okay.
years ago, and then 2 years ago we merged with Axum. They were kind of on parallel storylines with us. So our cafe we started with a vision to change the world. It takes a lot of money to go and do different local and global world change projects, and so rather than standing with our hand out, doing golf tournaments and fundraisers and things like that, we started the company to raise money to go and do things like that. And so
Yeah.
100% of our net profit is given away into things like ending human trafficking. A lot of people don't realize there's more slavery today than there ever has been in history. Things like clean water. 2 billion people on our planet don't have access to clean water like we do. And so a lot of sickness and disease comes from just simply not having access to clean water and drinking out of things that, our animals are going to the bathroom in and things like that. And so orphan care and adoption, feeding people in need, caring for the homeless, that kind of stuff. And so 2 years ago, as we were watching Oxum's story, I said, man, this is kind of silly that we're doing this separate because our goal was never about, raising our own kingdom anyway. And so we decided to join forces so that we could accomplish more together. So House Blend Cafe. So just to make sure that that's all clear, House Blend Cafe, we started 11 years ago, merged with Oxum 2 years ago. And then that's been kind of a crazy adventure. Since then, we just opened our eighth location since we merged and about 2 months ago. So
Great, great. Okay,
yeah,
good. Thank you for clarifying that.
yeah.
So, how did you get started, and what inspired you? Because this sounds like very inspirational work. Seems like a passion project,
For sure.
especially for the causes. So,
Yep.
how did you get started?
For me, yeah, kind of just a crazy story. My background is in music, was in the Atlanta music scene long time ago, um, back in like the 94, 95 kind of time frame. And then came to Full Sail to kind of stay in the music business. And then in 2000, I met actually New Year's Eve of 99, 2000, I met my wife, got married. Pretty soon after that, actually went into seminary to become a pastor. And when, but just never felt like the traditional church route was what I was called to. And so started the cafe, dreaming of a creative way to connect people to um, inspire them to get involved in something bigger than themselves, and then also to raise funds to do the things that we talked about. And so this for me is just about stepping into spaces that are broken and hurting and dark, and bringing light, life, and freedom into those spaces. And so that's why we started
That's
that.
amazing work.
Yeah, it's been a
And
fun.
seminary too. That's
Yeah, it's been a
quite a
fun.
diverse
Yeah,
background.
yeah.
So, in general, how do you come up for an idea for a business? I mean, taking your story, but being relatable to everyone joining us
Yep.
today. How do you come up with a business idea?
Yeah, so I mean, this really kind of formulated over the course of a couple of years of really dreaming of how to impact the world with the things that I was passionate about. I think it's crucial to get involved in something that you're passionate about, especially if you're going to start a business, because it's just hard work. I mean, starting something from scratch, you need to have a passion to draw from in order to be able to make it on the days when it's really hard and when finances are tough and when employees don't show up and all of that kind of stuff. So doing something that you're passionate about is crucial. So again, background in music, and then also kind of a parallel story in my life. I've been in the restaurant business about 27 years. Started washing dishes in a little Chinese restaurant when I was 15, and then that's just been kind of a way to pay for school and car insurance and things like that. And so never dreamed that I would actually start a restaurant. It was just always something to kind of pay the bills. So that's kind of my background. And then over the course of trying to figure out, do I go this way? Do I go that way? It all just kind of came together. And so we started the cafe to, initially the idea was formulated to start something out by UCF, to be a music venue, cafe, coffee shop, to be able to connect with students and young families, help raise awareness for different causes. And then met some people that were kind of had some similar passions, and that's what led us to start out on the west side of Orlando. But we hope to grow, and the vision is 40 years from now when we're handing this off to our kids, that we're giving away $1 billion a year. So we want to be giving away $100,000 a year, then $1 million a year, then $1 million a month, then $1 million a week, and then $1 million a day. So that's a big picture vision. I don't know if we'll get there, but that's what we're going to fight for. So
I mean, that's vision, that's goals, that's sustainability in a
right.
business too. You mentioned wanting to start it over by UCF, and
Yep.
then you pivot.
Yep.
And can you go into detail about pivoting on an idea and how important that is for a business owner or an entrepreneur?
Yeah, no question. I can tell you from experience, a lot of experience, that nothing ever looks like I thought it was going to look like. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't intended that way or intended to happen that way. It just, there are things that, you start with a vision, you kind of, imagine it in your mind, and then you kind of let some of the circumstances of life just kind of speak into that, and kind of, you got to see where doors of opportunity open and be ready for them. But the reality is that if you didn't have this vision over here, when an opportunity opens up, you're not ready for it. And so just be flexible in that. But understand that when there's a core vision that drives what you're doing when you start a business. And as long as you're true to that, some of the details of how it plays out can shift and mend, and be flexible. But
Excellent. What's the best way to get started? And you have an idea, okay? You have a good idea. You've worked on your idea, but how do you actually, the logistics of getting started? Like,
yeah.
how do you do that?
Yeah, I guess it depends on what industry you're in, what business you're starting. But you need to be an expert in that business, in that industry. It's going to take a lot of time and passion and energy. But once you understand what direction you're headed, then learn everything that you can learn about it. Nowadays with YouTube and Google, I mean, it's amazing the resources that are available at our fingertips. And even, as a part of a school like this that is passionate about helping you to succeed, there are incredible resources here available as well. But just dig, read, study, get a job in that industry before you start out on your own, if that job like that is available, because there are a lot of things that, in fact, I would say most things that you need experience for when running a business, you can't learn in a classroom. There's just, you got to learn how to shuck and jive with the different, curveballs that get thrown at you, financial challenges, leadership challenges when it comes to inspiring a team, because at the end of the day, you're going to need to lead a group of people to help, execute this vision. And so, and there's challenges that come with leadership. Just dealing with human beings is a challenge. And so, having an opportunity to lead other people before you jet out on your own and do that is crucial, because you need to kind of understand, the nuts and bolts of inspiring and motivating people to get around a vision. So.
And speaking in that, you talked about the nuts and bolts of leadership and actually inspiring people. What are some, advice you would give, and what are some pitfalls too that you might have seen in being a leader? Because it's a tightrope you walk sometimes, right?
Sure.
And getting people to buy into your vision. You're passionate about it, that's a given, but now you got to get other people on board.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the reality is that nobody's going to be more passionate about it than you are. So your level of passion will kind of then trickle down to the rest of your crew. It's a changing world, no question. I would say over the last 15 years or so, the um, there's absolutely, in just my experience, has been that the quality of um, labor that is available is is let me figure out how to say this, is coming up with there's some new challenges that are arising. A lot of kind of the kids, I say kids, like late high school, early college, like the idea of having a job, like the idea of being able to pay for their car insurance and that kind of stuff. But then when it comes to hard work and sweat and grunting it out, that restaurant business is just hard work. So we're finding that we are having to kind of coach and develop the team that we hire. Work ethic is just different. It just is. I don't mean that to be a judgmental statement. It's just kind of the reality that we're seeing. And then kind of the expectation that hey, I like this, I like having a job over here, but then when I want to take off for a concert or go out of town, or just being able to do that willy-nilly and not really understanding the commitment of having a job, that's crucial, being able. So anyway, it's just providing some newer challenges that we're constantly learning how to deal with on a daily basis. So
And there's got to be a lot of issues that come up that you weren't expecting. It's got a lot to be with,
always, every day.
and it seems like you can be in the business for 20, 30 years and still have those come up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the world's constantly changing. Worldviews are constantly changing, and so um, the the reality is that starting your own business, you need to have the mentality up front going into it that um, today is not going to go like you thought it was going to go. There's going to be challenges that come up. There's going to be fires that you have to put out, and you can either let that wreck you and destroy your morale and discourage you, or you can go into it with that expectation, and then allow that to kind of just say, all right, what's it going to be today? And then you deal with it. The reality is that the only reason we ever get disappointed, and this is, I think, crucial for you to understand, the only reason we ever get disappointed is when expectations aren't met. So when you find yourself disappointed and discouraged, find the expectation that disappointment is tied to and really study it. Be a good student of yourself, your own spirit, your own soul. Understand where those discouragements are coming from and find the expectation that it's tied to, and then see if it's even the right expectation to have, and then maybe shape that expectation a little bit. Because being able to have a positive attitude when challenges arise is going to be crucial when you're leading other people.
That is excellent advice. That is excellent advice. Some people worry, and I've heard this when I taught here, and actually from students now in my graduate programs, they're worrying about sharing their idea because maybe they have something that's new to the market. They don't have a patent on it, or they have a new way of doing something, and they're worried about sharing their idea to not only course and directors and instructors, but also to their fellow students and to try to build it. What do you think about that? What I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's legitimate. It depends on what you're doing and where you're going specifically. If it's a scientific patent or something like that, yeah, you need to be protective of that. You need to guard that. Recipes can't be patented. So, Coca-Cola guards their recipe, I mean, literally lock and key. So,
I heard two guys have it like part of it or something, right?
yeah,
The chicken recipe.
there's all kinds of theories,
Right.
and myths, I think, about that. But yeah, I think there's some wisdom in that. At the same time, you got to figure out how to glean wisdom from the experts around you. And so being cautious, building a relationship with the people that you're looking for to help you, so that there's some trust that's there. And then we are in such a rapidly changing world nowadays, that pretty much anything can be reverse engineered very quickly. So depending on what it is that you want to do, what business you want to start, you need to be ready to hit the ground running and understand that there's just going to be competition out there, and so whatever widget it is that you're trying to sell to somebody, another company that has a lot more money and a lot more manpower behind it than you do is going to come along. So the reality is you gotta work and live with passion, give it everything you got, and then kind of leave the rest up to God or whatever it is that you sort of believe in. So
No, excellent, excellent, and that's good advice too. You mentioned hiring people and the kind of the struggles you have with that sometimes, and people in general. Um, how do you find the best personnel? How do you find the best people that for your business endeavor, whether it's in your business now or when you just got started and you're looking to people to bring you aboard?
Yeah, I was hoping somebody would answer that question for me today. Does anybody want to take that one on? No, here's the deal. I have learned that some people that interview really well end up being, the worst for us, and then people who come in and interview just kind of so end up being fantastic. And I don't know, there's only so much that we can do. But the reality is that once you hire somebody, don't just expect them to be where you want them to be. You got to develop them and grow them, and invest in their life, in order for them to be able to take on what you need them to take on. And so, when it comes to training the staff that you have, it's massively important to understand that whatever you pour into them up front is going to make your job easier down the road. And so taking the extra time, going the extra mile, spending the extra hours up front is going to save you a whole lot more time down the line.
What is it called? An ounce of preparation, right? Is that
Yeah,
what it's
something
called?
like that.
Something
Yeah.
like that. In your career, and over the past time that you've worked in restaurants and you've built these businesses, what have you learned? What's the biggest thing that you have learned? If you just to give one piece of advice to them.
Um, Great question. I think one of the biggest things is you need to, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. You have to have a big why behind what you're doing, because if you don't, there are going to be days when you're ready to quit. There are going to be a lot of days when you're ready to give up, and there needs to be something that's bigger than you that you're striving for. Whether it's whatever your goals are, understand that they need to be big. It can't just be, I want to do this so that I can have a bigger house, because one day you're going to say, you know what, I'll live in a smaller house because it's going to get really hard. So for us, it's about understanding there are literally boys and girls right now that are being forced to do unspeakable things. I have two daughters, and if either of them was kidnapped and forced to do that kind of stuff, there's not anything I wouldn't give, including my arms and legs, to rescue them out of that. And so for us, that's what drives us, is to something that's bigger than just financial goals. You need to have a big why. What is it? How is it that you want to change the world, in whatever way that happens to be? Because you're going to need that inspiration to pull from when it gets hard. I remember a conversation with Steve Jobs and guy from Pepsi, drawing a blank on his name. Anyway, Steve Jobs was trying, this was back in the early 80s. Not every home had computers, and he's trying to recruit this guy, John Scully, to come over and help him take Apple to the next level. It was going to mean a massive pay cut. It was going to mean more hours. It was going to mean hard work. It was going to mean all of this kind of stuff. And Scully ultimately rejected him. And Steve Jobs looked at him square across the desk and said, do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to change the world? And so ultimately he came over, and that ended up being a nightmare for him. But nonetheless, we need that big why to draw from when it gets hard.
Right. And I think that goes into a lot of goal setting too. And really, we're big at goal setting here. And if you look to say, okay, what's your 5-year, 10-year, 15-year plan? There's got to be a bigger halo to that of why you're getting into your business. You mentioned pivoting, going from UCF, and then you went to the west side of town. But then you started working with some other businesses at some locations, and you just opened your 8th location.
We did.
Right? And can you explain a little bit about that, and maybe go into how you work with other businesses, because maybe you're unaware, when you start your own business, you can actually business to business work with other companies, and maybe you're in conjunction with them in either space or occupancy, or actually working with the similar products and stuff like that. So
Yep. So we have a small cafe inside of Toyota of Orlando. That's the big operation right there on I-4, kind of near Millennium Mall. We are also in Toyota of Claremont, same owners. We did that at the same time, and they expanded into Claremont 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago or so. And then we just opened a new cafe concept altogether inside the Dr. Phillips YMCA. It's the busiest YMCA in Central Florida. This particular concept is entirely centered around nutritious, healthy, made from scratch, local, raw, food, to hopefully not only change the world in the areas that we talked about, but also to help impact the health of our country. We were talking earlier. We're not far from a space where the costs of healthcare are just going to be cost prohibitive to fix the problems that we have from not eating properly, and people are going to have to focus more on preventative and just good day-to-day care of your body. This is a machine, and if you don't give it the right stuff, if you put junk in your gas tank for your car, it's going to malfunction and break down. And so we hope to be able to impact that space as well.
Great. And was it easy to work with Toyota, and was it easy to work with YMCA, or did that, bring up struggles on their own too, or issues?
Yeah, there's always challenges. I think one of from a restaurant standpoint, one of the challenges of being in a space like that is it's nice that there is already kind of a captive audience, but at the same time, there's very little room for mistakes, very little grace in a situation like that. Because if somebody gets bad food or gets, you serve bad product, then boom, it spreads like wildfire in there. And then, you've got, it can tank you. And so, there's just challenges. There's pros and cons in everything. And you just kind of have to weigh those out and see if it makes sense to take the risk and go do it. So, but we felt like, those were spaces that we not only wanted to just, they weren't just opportunities to make money, they were also opportunities to bring in influence and connect with a different group of people that we could inspire to, think about things, that are bigger than themselves and bigger than their day-to-day paycheck and job and things like that. So
bringing people kind of into your fold, into your passion too, even other businesses. They may not have done that already. You kind of hinted at this, but are there any negatives to owning your own business?
Yes. The nice thing about having a job is you can just go to work, you clock in, and when you're done, you clock out, and you're off. When you own your own business, you're never off. Everything falls back on you. So if somebody decides to call in sick, or if something goes wrong, you've got to be the one to step up, and that can be in off hours, it can be late night, it can be weekends, it can be in family time, and so you just have to be prepared for that. And then the only thing that I would just suggest as business owners is understand what your non-negotiable your life non-negotiables are. For me, that's family, that's marriage. Families are the building blocks of community. And if it would be entirely hypocritical for us to have this vision to go and change the world and then work myself into a divorce and, kids that don't know me and kids that, regret that I was ever doing those things. And so, we committed upfront from day one. I'm not going to, work 100 hours a week. 90% of all restaurants fail. 90% of all restaurants fail in the first year. And the 10% that make it are typically because you have some harebrained fool who's willing to work 110, 120 hours a week, and their kids grow up behind the counter and are just willing to go that extra mile. And we committed up front, listen, we're just not going to do that. And however the chips fall, they fall, and again, for me in particular, it's just about trusting God. Like, listen, this is crazy. We're not going to do that. And then allow him to, control all the rest of the stuff. And so, have your non-negotiables, have your musts, if you will. I would say protecting downtime, protecting quiet time. If you're young, now is the time to do that, because you have some flexibility. If you're not married, you have some flexibility to work crazy hours and do those kinds of crazy things that it takes to start a business. But that would be my only encouragement and challenge to you guys today, is just don't let that ever come between you and your family if you're married.
That's great. That's great advice, actually, too. Talk about taking risk in a business and managing those risks, and maybe some successes and maybe some failures, but in the long run, how does that work out?
Yeah, I mean, nothing worthwhile comes without risk. That's the bottom line. I mean, I've always appreciated Google's corporate philosophy that if you're not failing, you're not trying. And so you got to be willing to step into spaces and fail. The failure is not an event. It's a judgment about an event. Right? Let me say that again. Failure is not an event. It's a judgment about an event. When you step into something and it doesn't work, all you've done is learned. Right? And so it's crucial that you're willing to take risks to be able to, most companies that have started stepped into spaces and messed up and failed. Starbucks, for example, it was 17 years before they opened their second location and almost, went under multiple times in their journey. So you got to be willing to just step out and take risk. And that means financial risk. It might mean that while you're starting your business, you're, working in a restaurant somewhere to make ends meet, who knows? But the reality is that starting a business is going to be hard work. You need that big why to motivate you when it's hard. So
that makes it easier to put some perspective, even with the really good times and the really bad times.
Yep.
And this might not be a super easy question to answer, but when was that hallmark moment for you? Or when was that moment as a business owner where you go, okay, here I am. Like what I kind of wanted to do, maybe not exactly, but when was that? When did that happen for you?
Meaning, if I understand your question, when did I feel like, hey, we're really doing this?
We're doing what we wanted to do. Did it come quickly?
I mean, in some sense, day one, and in other senses, we're not there. And what I mean by that is, for us, it was about impacting the planet. It's easy to get excited and inspired about giving away $1 billion a year, but it doesn't mean that, until we've arrived at that, or if we ever even arrive at that, it doesn't mean that we're not successful now. And so what I mean by that is I have an opportunity to impact every single individual that we interact with every single day that comes into our cafes. And so we interact and care for people all the time that, mom's dying of cancer, wife is struggling with this or whatever, and I just lost my job and we can't make ends meet and I can't afford to buy food for my kids, and we have an opportunity to we'll rally troops together and help provide meals for that family, or provide a safe space for a comforting, warm hangout space for that person to be in. I just literally just 2 days ago talked to one of our regulars. His name is Jim. He's been coming to the cafe for the last 2 years, but has been battling cancer for the last 16 years. And he's getting to a space now where it's just taking over and he's not going to make it. And so over the last few months, we've seen him less and less and less. And as I talked to him the other day, he said, you know what, chemo's been getting harder and harder. And I really am disappointed when I can't come into Houseblend, because he just feels like he's a part of the family, like he's loved, he's cared for, he's just, part of the family. And so, so in that sense, we absolutely are doing what we, opened the doors to do. But yet there's still a lot of brokenness on the planet. And so we've got a long way to go.
We appreciate everything you do.
Yeah.
Right now, I kind of want to give it up to the students here and also online for questions that you might have for Josh.
And I cannot see you, so.
The lights are bright up here.
Hey, all right.
Okay, great. Annie, right over here has a mic.
Hi, I wanted to know, how do you deal with distractions, especially if the distractions are coming from family, friends, or even things that you used to like to do, but people, I guess, are starting to say you've changed, or you don't feel the same way about, people that you care about. But in your mind, it's just about the focus. So how do you kind of tell yourself, these are distractions and, like not put off your focus?
Yeah, I can tell there's some history coming from that question. I would say, I guess it depends on the kind of distraction that you're talking about. If it's family, it's never a distraction. Give them, do the best you can to give them the time and let them know that you care for them. And if it's your wife or your kids, they spell love Time. And so that's a challenge. But for people that are negative, then if you can tell the difference, right? If somebody just has a negative naysayer kind of attitude, sometimes you just got to let those people kind of fade out of your life. Not in a negative, kick them to the curb kind of thing, but just focus on the things and the people that are going to move this vision forward. Yeah, I don't know. Does that make sense? Does that help at all? Okay.
Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
You elaborated for a quick second on saying that you were in the music industry within Atlanta in the early '90s.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah, I was a part of a band, and we were going to make it. We were going to be famous, and um, in many ways, I look back on that, and and I hope this isn't a discouragement. In many ways, I look back on that, and I'm so thankful that didn't work out because of where I am today. But yeah, I mean, we were playing different clubs and things like that, back then, and I think the reality for us. I don't know if this is more detail than you care for, but we just didn't have the right front man to make it. And so great, musicians and in the band and stuff, but it takes that right, leader up front to really make it. But I didn't want to necessarily give up on that dream. And so that's why I came here. And it just turns out that for me, God had a different way of using that. And so what I've learned here at Full Sail in the Recording Arts program, I've gotten to use in a lot of different ways, from things like now with social media and video production and things like that. I've learned so much of what I learned here. I'm able to put into practice on a day-to-day basis in business, and I don't necessarily have to go and hire a graphic designer to do some of the things that we put out there. I'm able to do a lot of that on our own, and some of the videos that we put out on social media, I'm able to do those on my own. And so, as a small business, saving money in those areas is a big deal. So. Does that answer your question? Cool.
What did you play?
Drums.
Okay.
Hey.
He seems like a drummer, right? Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
This is not really a question, but I want to commend you on coming to Full Sail. It's so many people around here, to be honest. So many people around here who feel like Full Sail is so um, overwhelming, and they are a little bit discouraged. But for you to have come here for recording arts and to be able to take what you learn from here and put it into something like this and to be so successful, I really respect that, and I think that's great.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of piggyback on that thought. You are only going to get out of this program, whatever program that you're in, you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. If you just show up and do what you have to do to graduate, don't expect that when you go out into the real world that you're going to have all the tools that you need. You need to take extra time and energy and effort to whatever program you're in. Say, hey, how can I get more hours in this area or that? And volunteer, go and, get involved. If you're in video production or audio production, there's a lot of fantastic churches in the area that need, help in those. And you'll be shocked at how much you'll learn just in day-to-day life. So, yeah. And then from a discouragement standpoint, don't ever, again, I'll say it again, failure is not an event. It's a judgment about an event. What you gain while you're here, if you work hard and give it everything you got, is going to be valuable to you in some way down the road. I promise you that.
Any more questions? Full Sail's changed a lot, huh? Since you were here?
Changed a lot, yeah. None of this was here. It was just, a couple of buildings around the corner. That was it.
You're going on a tour later too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I want to thank you for being here. I think you have such great advice for our students here. And let's give him a round of applause, everyone. Josh Taylor.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.